As I was saying, atheists, in my experience, have a craving for a larger meaning, as Chapman put it, but they refuse to satisfy this spiritual hunger with theological junk. But it's finally up to each of us to separate for ourselves what we consider the spiritual sources of sustenance from the theological junk. As I replied to Delana, we do each have to find and walk our own path, of course. And like Chapman, I have learned to see the value of others' paths, even though I cannot follow them or sometimes even understand them. My issue is not with pluralism and the varieties of experience and belief. It is with exclusion and narrowness of judgment, with the attitude that 7/8 of us are doomed to eternal torture at the hands of a loving God simply for dissenting from others' faith. With the denialism of the very science that accounts for the technology we all enjoy, including the very platform we're communicating with and on right now, and that raised our ancestors from rank superstition and ignorance. With the will to impose one's own sectarian ideas upon everyone and to squash academic freedom. Those are the things I have issues with. Sacred texts, they're fine, so long as we read them in an appropriately interpreted and modernized light and not in the literal intent of their pre-scientific authors. As a public school educator, I know you don't mean to imply, as a fellow public school educator, I know you don't mean to imply when you say of your decision to send your children to private schools that it was vital for them to be raised with the truth, to imply that public education fosters untruth. But the mission of public education is to educate children from every background and tradition, while respecting their home truths and cultural traditions, respecting them at least to the extent of not impeding them or denying them in the public forum. Hence the propriety of refraining from religious instruction in that arena, in the public schools. But evolutionary science in the public domain is not a competitor truth, it is a foundational truth, in the light of which we can begin to understand the variety of cultural and religious practices that are natural for humans. It is everybody's story, as Loyal Rue has written in his eponymously titled book, Everybody's Story. Evolution, that is everybody's story, whether they like it or not. The thing about truth is that you don't have to believe it for it to be true. And so it's a primary responsibility of public education to tell the story that unifies us as a species and gives us the wider context in which to understand and celebrate, not just tolerate, our differences. And as I've replied to Mitch, it was Chrissy Hynde, wasn't it? The pretender, who said, we're all of us in the gutter, but some of us are looking at the stars. Well, somebody must have said that before she did, but give her credit. Not exactly a Sagan-esque sentiment, but a good coda for, quote, St. Matthew, Chapman. Like you, I find the personal growth reflected in his surprising tolerance for and his affection for the people he meets in Dayton redemptive. I forgive a lot of his other sins and excesses because he does profess a real humanity in reaching out to people who see the world so very differently than he does. It's true, he harvested some good sunlight in his Tennessee pilgrimage. I also think the so-called mountaintop experience is available to humans in every culture and every tradition, and from countless sources. It's so silly to try and pin down the one right religion, when what really matters is our shared and nearly universal receptivity to such elevated feelings from whatever source. And I will always contend that those feelings are natural for us. They do not point to a supernatural provenance. They're natural. It's natural to go to the mountaintop, to have an elevated experience. And so it all comes down, doesn't it, to live and let live. Let others, quote, find God, or meaning and purpose or peace of mind or whatever it is that they're looking for in their own way. Let them move to the country and eat a lot of peaches, as John Prine said. Whatever. And appreciate the fact that that is the human way of transcendence. To find our own path, to walk our own path, and to respect others' rights to do the same. Whether we can follow them or not, or want to. Be uniters, not dividers, and don't take ourselves so darn seriously all the time. That, I think, is when we will evolve to the next stage of our humanity. And that can't happen quickly enough, can it? The rest of the world is pretty unimpressed with the present state of our evolutionary ascent in this country, as evidenced by our inability to subdue COVID-19. See the video below from the New York Times today. So we close those two books, Chapman and Larson. 1 week remains in our July mini-mester, July slopping slightly over into August. Perhaps some of you will open another book for your final essay next week, or perhaps you'll want to tackle my closing question. I already had this in mind, Mitch, before I read your reference to Thomas Jefferson's statement. You clinched it. Here's the question, or the proposal for an essay. Transcribe an imaginary conversation between yourself, Brian, Chapman, and Darrow. You've all just witnessed the Scopes reenactment in Dayton on July 20, 2021. Hope that's not unrealistically optimistic. And are now gathered at the Monkeytown Brewing Company. Darrow and Chapman are enjoying an Evolutionary Theory No. 1 IPA. Brian has ordered a monkey fillet sandwich and an Elvis burger. Darrow says he agrees with Tom Jefferson. It neither picks his pocket nor breaks his leg for anyone to believe in many gods or none, etc. And then you say, and I look forward to reading what you say if you choose to tackle my question, or I look forward to reading whatever it is you choose to write your final essay on. I can't believe our little summer course is almost over. It's been great. Talk to you. I'll Zoom with you tomorrow.